We just got back from seeing Hellfest.
We'll be back with our non-spoiler review.
Hi folks, welcome back to Pop Pop Fizzle. I'm Jeff.
I'm Heidi.
And we're here with our non-spoiler review for Hellfest. Now, we may talk spoilers toward the end of this. If so, I will make sure and give you some sort of warning about that. We may not. I don't know. We didn't really discuss it before we jumped into this, but we'll see. I don't know about you, but when when the lights went down and the movie started, I thought, oh no. This movie's called Hellfest. What if it's just an hour and a half of news coverage? Oh. I know. But
actually, when the lights went down after the trailers ended, I turned to Jeff and I was like, what movie are we here to see? Because he bought the tickets. I just knew that he wanted to go see something today, and of the movies that were opening, I just didn't remember which one it was.
This is the hilarity of what we do and how we operate, is that just last night I told my daughter that new Hellfest movie comes out this weekend, and man, do I not want to see that. None of the trailers have really interested me. I just feel like I've seen it all before, and I just don't have any interest. And then today, or actually last night, shortly after that, I said, we should probably go see Hellfest and do a review for it, because the channel, and it is a new movie coming out this week. So
and I missed both of those conversations, even though I was in the room.
Yeah. That's how this goes. So we went to see a matinee this afternoon.
Yep.
And you didn't really have any info about this going in, did you?
None whatsoever. I had no info. I don't think I even saw a trailer for it. Like, I think I do remember you saying that you want to see it. I remember that because it was a weird thing to say.
Yes, I wanted to want to see it.
And it just felt like you said it felt like it was stuff that you'd seen before.
Right.
So we went to go see it.
Yeah. What'd you think?
It wasn't overly cliched. I was actually pleasantly surprised by that. There was, I said it in the movie, I said, I think it subverted some expectations. You're like, oh, it's not smart enough to subvert expectations. And I think it did. I think there was some...
Maybe some really low set expectations.
Maybe some low set expectations. But there were some points in time where I was like, okay, so these characters are just a little bit, at least some of them are a little bit smarter than expected. So I was happy to see that, and it kind of added to the tension that ratcheted around. So I enjoyed it.
Okay. I think what didn't draw me in about the trailers for this film was that feeling that it might be cliched, the feeling that it might be, I've seen some variation of this before. To be fair, it's hard within a genre like horror or sci-fi that's very specific and sort of its framework, not to have that feeling. So I say that not because I'm wanting to be picky about this movie, but I'm saying it because it really is a difficult thing. So I don't envy anybody attempting to do something fresh or new in those areas, because it is difficult. However, I did feel like as the movie started, there were some very familiar sort of setups for horror movies. Get to know our teen cast or our young cast. This guy is the funny guy. This guy is the jock. This guy is, what I'm saying? That there was some of that. It wasn't as pronounced.
No.
But it's still the kind of thing that like Cabin in the Woods poked fun at. There's still some archetypes at play there.
It was a group of kids you would expect to hang out together.
Yes.
At least there's that. The entire movie, besides the intro to our teen cast or like college age cast, whatever. I think they were apparently in college at some point.
Yeah, there was one prelude set a couple of years before, and then we got to meet the cast, and then the rest of the movie takes place at Hellfest.
Yeah, which is apparently like a traveling festival, Halloween sort of thing. Really, like lots of. And one of the things Jeff asked me while we were there, and we were chatting just a little bit in the theater because there was like
there were like 5 of us there.
I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 other people in the theater, so we weren't really.
They were sitting way back.
We were not disturbing anybody because we don't believe in that.
Nope.
But I think he said to me, if this is a traveling festival, how are there all these buildings? And I'm like, I think
because it was not even like Six Flags level buildings. It was like Disney World level buildings.
And think
there was a lot of architecture there.
There was a lot of architecture there, so it was not necessarily believable as a traveling thing, but you could just suspend that disbelief.
But also, they didn't need to say it. It was a traveling thing.
Yeah.
They could have just said Hellfest.
It's our town's thing, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or something.
That's what we're known for.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Something. Something. And
yeah, so that was a little silly. Tony Dodd's in this film. If you have seen enough horror films, you've come across Tony Dodd before. He has a very minimal part in this, but you hear his voice throughout. As he kind of narrates the rides and does all the spooky dialogue for the rides as they go through.
Yeah.
And everything. And he has a little bit of time on screen as well. So that was good.
That was fun.
Yeah, always good to see him. And he always gives the appropriate creepy vibe and all that.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
So I think for me, going in, I was expecting a lot of cliche, I've seen this before, a lot of cheesy dialogue, a lot of actors that I'm somewhat familiar with from other, horror-y sort of things, playing very similar characters to what I've seen them play before. That always annoys me a little bit, because it's like, you're young, don't be typecast into these kind of roles.
Yeah.
But the movie overall, as you said, there were some cliches that it avoided. There were some that it stepped into wholeheartedly. And then my main issue with it, as somebody who tries to write entertaining stories myself, I had a problem with a lot of the dialogue. A lot of the dialogue felt like they were repeating the same beats over and over again to sell certain elements of relationships or budding relationships or whatever. And it was just like, we get it. They're awkward. We get it. The friends are trying to push them together. Or we get it. They've been best friends for a long time. We get it. They're, BFFs and they're going to go off together, and take a trip or whatever. And it was like, some of the dialogue just was like, it felt like a highlighter to me, like somebody just going through and going, let me highlight this, let me highlight that. And it was like, there are other better ways to sell that without being repetitive.
Yeah.
So that was really my only strong complaint. But I want to give some praise, because I don't want this to seem negative. Praise would go to the notion of the killer in the film.
I believe
if you've seen the trailer.
I believe in the credits they call him the other.
Yeah. If you've seen the trailer, then you've seen the mask and the hoodie and all that. And what I think is really clever and cool about this is really not...
Spoiler alert.
There. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not... I guess it's a spoiler alert, but...
I didn't hate the dialogue. Like, it didn't... I didn't...
Well, I didn't hate it.
No, I know you didn't hate it, but like I didn't feel like they were taking an underline or like a highlighter, or they were just doing like trumpet alarms every time they were saying stuff. Like, it just... I think... It actually didn't even bother me. Like, I got the relationships that they had, and it was a little heavy-handed, but it didn't feel like it was overmuch. Like, it was like... You needed to understand who these people were just a little bit, or else they would just be paper cutouts running around screen. So,
well, and that's where I have the problem, though, is that I didn't feel like I cared about anybody in this film. To me, in order to go through a horror movie feeling the terror and the horror that the movie wants me to feel, I've got to care whether these people live or die, and I never did.
I did feel like there was like one throwaway line about one of the characters having trouble with school and life and stuff, and they're like, yeah, but tonight's the night that we don't think about these things. Yay!
Yeah.
So
and they could have built on that. I felt like they could have given us a reason for why her approach to the situation was different than other people's. There were other things, and we'll talk spoilers here toward the end, but for right now, before we get to anything really spoilery, we'll give it our grade. Now, if you've watched enough of these reviews, you know that since our channel is Pop Pop Fizzle, we normally grade on that scale. If it's a fizzle, then it's not worth your time or your money. If it's a pop, that means sure, check it out sometime when you get a chance, but you don't need to pay big ticket prices to go and see it. Just check it out when it hits streaming or whatever. And if it's a double pop for us, that means drop what you're doing, grab a huge popcorn and a big drink. And I don't even know if that's on camera, but I tapped it anyway.
Tap it.
It's a big drink.
Big drink.
do that, and then it'll be worth your effort, your time. So, Heidi, on that scale, is this a pop, a double pop, or a fizzle for you?
It is a pop for me. I felt like it was a fun movie. It was, I would watch it. Like, I wouldn't necessarily run out and see it on the big screen, but for Halloween parties or get-togethers, or just trying to get in the mood for Halloween, I feel like this is a fun movie for that sort of thing. So I know people tend to do movie marathons or something on Halloween night, or the week leading up, and this would be one that would be fun to add to the mix. I think this is worth seeing, but not necessarily on a big screen. So pop for me.
Yeah. I would land there as well. I don't think there's anything about this film that requires the big screen treatment, but I did find it enjoyable enough. Way to kill an hour and a half. So I know that doesn't sound like a big recommendation, but I've seen worse, and it reminds me of the kind of thing where I would, if I were scrolling through Netflix, not a sponsor, but if I were scrolling through Netflix and came across this and watched it, not knowing what I was going to get, I'd be pleasantly surprised. It was decent enough for me to enjoy. I've certainly seen worse, and certainly sat through worse and paid for worse. So, on that. In that sort of scale, I was fine with it. I just don't think it necessarily needs the big screen treatment or the big screen ticket prices, but I was okay paying the matinee price and going to see it today. So that's how we rate it. We want to know what you think about it. Certainly, if you've already seen it, jump into the comments below and let us know. I want to take just a minute or two, though, here at the end to talk about spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can turn this off and come back to it after you've seen the movie. Or if you don't care anything about the movie, that's fine. Keep watching. But just a little bit of a spoiler discussion here at the end.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Yeah. Mainly so that we can dissect things a little bit more. So that's your spoiler warning, and from this point forward, anything goes.
Okay.
I wanted to say, I think that the notion of the killer not having a motive that we know about, that we understand, keeps him. When we do understand, or when we do know the background, it runs the risk of making a character sympathetic that shouldn't be sympathetic.
Yes.
And so the fact that we never see the killer's face, I thought was a strong choice.
Yes.
Was good, because they could have done a stunt casting thing where they put a familiar celebrity, just used a stand-in for the movie, and then at that last scene, revealed him or her or whatever, and they never did.
It's definitely a man.
And so I think that that could have been an easy choice to have people go, oh, there's a twist at the end, it's so cool, or whatever. And they didn't go for that, which I applaud them for. And I do think it was a strong choice. I think it's definitely a killer and a situation that it's not unlike things that we've seen before. But I liked the notion of, in the context in which he's killing these people, he doesn't stand out.
I think that was
everything scary.
That was something one of the characters said. These psychopaths are among us, and that's very true.
Said as a joke very early on. Yeah.
Yes, as a joke early on, and it was very, very true that this is just somebody who happens to be, have fun killing people at horror things. So that's his MO.
Yeah, it reminded me of, and this is, if you haven't read anything I've written, this. I'm not going to mention the name of the story because I don't want to spoil anything for you. But if you recall, I had written a story in which it might have been easy to sympathize with a certain character who had done very bad things.
Yes.
And I ended up rewriting the ending in such a way where you questioned his account of the story as opposed to someone else's account of the story, and really I left you with no viable person to believe. I think that when a story risks the notion of finding some sort of understanding of a very bad person, that it runs the risk of making them sympathetic, and I don't think that you want to ever make a killer sympathetic. No. I mean, they're obviously, real life is complex, and there are complexities in every court case and all that. I'm not saying that it's not, but I am saying that when you're talking about a film, and you've got an hour and a half or 2 hours to tell a story, trying to convincingly make someone sympathetic in a way that, you run the risk of excusing all the violence that came before it.
Right.
And so I was glad they didn't make that choice.
Yeah, this is straightforward. This is our killer. This is what he does.
And I thought early
like
on,
it or not.
Early on, I thought, you're gonna steal my drink.
I am.
Early on, I wondered if perhaps they were gonna go for a, pulling the rug out from under us at the end. Like maybe they were showing us things that were part of a setup for, they showed us that early scene so that they could tell her that story, but it was all a part of Hellfest, and we were going to get to the end and surprise, everybody's alive or whatever. But by the time they actually killed the first person of their group, it was so obviously not that. And so at that point I was like, oh, okay, so we're really doing this. It's not going to be a bait and switch kind of thing at the end.
No, because that first person was very obviously dead.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm glad in that sense that they didn't take some easy outs or play it off in a way that would have sort of numbed the horror of it all. On the other hand,
I like that our protagonist, or at least the main character that we were following, seemed at least a little bit smart.
Yes.
She showed early on that she was, she was paying attention and realizing how the mazes and the haunted houses worked. So, it wasn't a surprise that she was able to figure that out later in the end.
Like you, though, I kind of wish we would have gotten some more of her backstory to understand what her background was. The other thing that I thought was interesting, because I kind of expected it to come up, was it showed the guys when they were winning prizes, not her guy Gavin, but the other two, were like shooting at things and not even looking and winning stuff.
Right.
And I was like, so they have skills.
Yeah, I was expecting them to be able to use some skills.
So maybe when this stuff starts going down, maybe we'll see them applying these skills.
I thought so too. And
or whatever.
That did not pay off. That did not pay off.
And it was like, why would you set that? I know it was just a throwaway thing that, hey, we're good at winning prizes or whatever.
Well, I think it was to emphasize how bad the other guy was.
Yes. Okay. So as we said in the non-spoiler part of things, I felt like some of the dialogue was lacking. The whole ribbing of Gavin and Natalie.
I think it was Natalie.
Yeah, grade school.
Yeah.
The whole ribbing of the group of them, it just got old. Like every time they were together for half a minute and quiet, they were like, hey, you guys need some time alone together. It was like, yeah, we get, and then they would have to go, oh, that was very subtle. And it was the same dialogue beats over and over again. And then every time it was just the two of them, it was him not doing something well and her trying to make him feel better about it. And him, and it was like, we get it. We got it the first time. Give us something else with this.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes kids can't let a joke go.
Like what was their history? How did they know each other?
I think they met over the summer.
How? Where? Why? There was no discussion of any of that stuff. But that could have been part of dialogue that made us actually care about them more than we did.
Yeah.
And I just went through the whole movie feeling like I didn't know any of them well enough to care. They drove home the point that the two girls were best friends. They had the necklaces that matched, the little hearts and all that stuff.
Yeah, and they drifted apart.
Yes. And so, and I did like that there was some symbolism of that in the fact that toward the end, the one girl took the left side of the maze and the other girl took the right side of the maze. I thought that was symbolic of that. But they came back together, all that. Yeah. So there were some decent beats. I just felt like, for the most part, it was a little haphazard and a little all over the place.
Yeah, but for what it was, I mean, like you said, it's hard to do something completely original. I feel like this, we still have, the killer hacking through a bunch of teens, so that part's not original.
But it's not it's not an atypical slasher film. It's very much typical. If you've seen the slasher film, you've seen this movie for the most part. And in a stretch of time in which we've gotten things like It Follows and Hereditary and some really good horror films.
Well,
this one seems very lazy.
But we also got the Slender Man. Not the
Slender Man.
Slender Man.
The Slender Man is something I wrote.
Something you wrote and I enjoyed it.
Okay, yeah. The Slender Man is the wholly different thing.
Yeah. We got Slender Man, and which was. Sorry, if you haven't seen our review, we didn't like it.
But I think in an age or in a span of time in which we are getting some good horror movies, whenever something seems like it's lazy or just cookie cutter, it's hard for me to buy into it too much.
I'm also really glad that it's not part of, like, it's not like the 7th sequel of something.
Right.
So it's
right, but I think leaving the killer alive means that they at least have hopes that they'll get another one.
hopes that they'll have another one, and even if they don't, I don't really feel like it's gonna be awful. I feel like where they left it was even more horrifying than just either getting the killer or knowing that he's out, like just knowing that he's out there. Like the real ending was really, I was like, oh. So definitely different, at least in that respect.
Yeah.
So I feel like even though we were talking spoilers, we're still kind of like hedging off and not necessarily saying everything, and I feel like that's okay.
Yeah, and I'll probably go back in the edit and remove my earlier spoiler where I mentioned the killer not having a motive or whatever in the non-spoiler section. I'll just bleep out that dialogue and put a little line under there. Jeff's an idiot who tried to spoil the movie accidentally. It happens.
Well, it's hard, but it's I felt like it was a fun movie. Like, I felt like the characters were at least believable as college-age students.
Yeah,
I felt
wearing
like
very 90s clothes.
The 90s apparently have come back again. I'm already lost. Like, how did we already cycled through the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it's 90s again. I don't think
I lived through this once. I don't want to see all this.
I don't think the O's or the aughts had any specific trendy things because.
They did.
Well,
we were just too old to pay attention to them.
Maybe, but also I think that was when all the recycling was happening. So I don't know. So I don't know. I guess I lost those years. I don't know what happened. But yes, they were wearing very 90s stuff, and so Jeff actually said, "Is this set in or told me or asked me if it was set in the 90s?" I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah, I assumed because of their phones that it was supposed to be modern day.
Yeah.
But the clothes, there were some clothing choices that were very 90s.
Very 90s.
Yeah, but overall, we, as we said earlier in this, we gave it a pop each. So it's definitely worth seeing it, whether you wait for streaming or rent it in a Redbox or whatever.
But definitely something worth throwing into the Halloween marathon if that's something.
Sure,
that friends do.
Yeah, and since Halloween is upon us, and there's not a whole lot to see right now, Halloween's coming.
Yes.
Not the holiday, the movie. It's coming. It's coming. We'll definitely review that one as well.
And then also, just note the rating on this. There is language in this and gore, so just pay attention to that if you are bringing younger viewers.
Yeah, and there was some sexual dialogue, but no nudity or anything like that. Yeah. So
kudos to a horror movie for not having naked people running around.
That's a cliche they avoided for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are our thoughts on this, both non-spoiler and spoiler. If you have already seen the movie, jump down in the comments below, use the spoiler tag, let us know what you thought about it. If you haven't seen it yet, are you looking forward to seeing it after seeing our non-spoiler review? Hopefully you stopped watching by now, but if not, okay. Whatever. It's your choice, man. It's a free country.
Yeah.
So that's it for us. If you like this video,
hit that thumbs
and
up.
Consider subscribing to the channel. We love it when you do that. We are doing some fun stuff that we're planning for Patreon. We're going to be shooting some of that later today. So that link is down in the description as well if you'd like to join us there. In the meantime, you be thinking about what you'd like for us to react to next. We always take those suggestions. We can't always get to them. And sometimes, unfortunately, when we go see a movie to review, we see trailers that we should have reacted to, but we see them before we get a chance to.
Yeah.
And we don't ever want to give you like a half-hearted reaction to something we've already seen. So unfortunately, we don't get to react to everything you suggest, but feel free to throw those into the comments as well. Until next time, folks.
Bye.
Bye.